David asked about Wiggins' 40 time. Obviously, he hasn't run yet, but I did want to mention that he said in the preliminary draft interviews that the highest time, the best time that he's been clocked in preparation for it was a 4.27.
4.27, huh?
Yeah.
Woo! All right.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys,
he's fast, man.
We know, yeah, he's really, really fast. And I put a tweet out that I said, for most players when they say stuff like this, it's like, oh, we'll see, but yeah, man, that's the speed shows up on tape, and he's one of the fastest players I can remember, playing at Clemson. So I would not surprise me. It would not surprise me if he ran a sub 4.3. And even then, if he runs as a defensive back with of his caliber, you really only need, especially with his coverage skills, you really only need a 4 to run like a 4.4 in the 4.4s for scouts to be like, okay, he's got verified speed, but he's faster than that. Yeah, so I would be surprised if he was. I would be surprised if he was anything slower than the 4.3 range. That's for sure. Yeah. And I think that could be that might be a low end time. And so if he runs like a 4.27, 4.28, 4.2, those are some of the fastest times in combine history. He would be, I don't know if he would make the top 10, but he'd be in the top 20 for sure.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah. So he's fast. I expect him to run a really, really strong time tomorrow. Let's see. Almighty Fan says, thanks for showing so much love in here to a FSU fan. Catch y'all later. Yeah, man. Otherwise known as Insane Mob. Good to have you. He's been our resident FSU fan since he's been around since the at least before the Florida State game this year. He's been around a long time. So
appreciate you sticking around, man. Love to have other fan bases in the air.
Absolutely. He's been around a while. So good to have you, man. David also asked, how did Myles Murphy do in the NFL? Well, his career is far from over, but, he had a limited, rookie season. He's kind of spent a lot of the year as the backup. I mean, the Bengals have really good defense, edge rushers. So, that was kind of to be expected. But he flashed some at times. So, we'll kind of see how it goes. He's with Marion Hobby. Obviously, Clemson fans know that name, former defensive end coach at Clemson. And so obviously he knows, obviously what didn't coach Myles, but obviously that Clemson connection certainly helps more than it hurts. So, Myles Murphy was always a guy I saw as I didn't expect him to come in and dominate right away. It was going to take him some time to kind of figure out, but the physical tools are there. And I think he showed it at times last year. So we'll see kind of what he looks like heading into his second season. Jeremiah's Payne asked, do y'all think Dabo lets Garrett get more freedom in the offense in year 2? I think the question is kind of flawed because I don't think it's Dabo holding, Garrett back as far as what the offense was able to do last year. It was the personnel, the guys, what you were working with from a quarterback standpoint, offensive line standpoint, especially, and just guys not, flat out, not doing the easy, what's supposed to be the easy stuff, right? When you can't run your basic fundamental stuff, you can't build anything off of it. And you can't run those the explosive plays and create the same kind of be kind of creative like you want to, because you don't trust, you don't have the trust in your guys like you would want to. So I certainly think it's not been Dabo was hindering Garrett's freedom with the offense last year. I think it was the personnel limiting Garrett's freedom with the offense and just the lack of execution. And that falls on Garrett because at least to some degree, because it's his offense. He's the coach. It's part of your job is to make sure these guys are ready to play and are doing what you ask. So that's You know, it's not just I think what, you know, Clemson fans to a degree, when we've talked about this, we've kind of sort of eschewed blame from Garrett Riley because, you know, he was the shiny new toy, the shiny new hire, and he's supposed to come in and save the offense. But it's not, obviously it wasn't that simple, and obviously things didn't go how we wanted to. And yeah, there are a lot of reasons why it didn't work out that are beyond Garrett Riley's control. I mean, these aren't guys he recruited. It's not a quarterback he recruited, offensive line, you know, and it's a new system. But, you know, some responsibility still has to fall on him. And I think this is a big year for him. Not just his players, but it's a big year for him. Because he's still a young coach and has aspirations, I'm sure. And, you know, I certainly don't think that, you know, last year was how he envisioned his first year at Clemson going. So
certainly not. I think everybody envisioned it to go quite a bit differently. But, you know, this is a popular narrative that's out there that, you know, Dabo Swinney kind of runs the offense, and, you know, Garrett Riley has to operate within the limits of what Dabo Swinney tells him to do. And, you know, I know it's a popular narrative out there. I just don't buy into it at all. I don't think you hire a guy like Garrett Riley and then handcuff him in your offensive scheme, right? And frankly, I don't think a guy like Garrett Riley would come to Clemson just to be handcuffed and to run Clemson's offense, right?
If I came in, if a future Hall of Fame coach called me and said, "Hey, listen, I want you to come. I want you to come, and you're the breath of fresh air that we need, and I want you to come fix this offense." And then I come in and it says, "Here's what you're going to run," and the head coach says, "Here's what you're going to run. You're going to do this, this, and this, and this." You could, think I'm not staying for another year of that.
No, I would obviously coach the season, because I mean, what else are you going to do at that point?
Right.
But I'd be out.
Like, I'm gone after this year. I'm taking another job. You can't tell me Garrett Riley didn't have job offers from one season.
No. He could. No. He could go. He could go if he wanted to. So I don't think Dabo's handcuffing him. Look, you know, as much as flack that Dabo gets about certain things that he says in the media, and, you know, maybe people disagree with him about this or that, I don't think there's any question that the guy wants to win. And if you bring in a guy like Garrett Riley, you bring him in because you want to win. And guess what? You fired a Clemson guy, a through and through Clemson guy, a guy that was a quarterback at Clemson, had been at Clemson for literally forever. And you fired him after one season. You don't do that unless you want to win football games and you don't think that dude can do it. And then you bring in a guy like Garrett Riley. It wouldn't make sense to handcuff that dude. I think it goes. If
you wanted a guy that was that just did what you said, you should have just kept.
You would have kept Brandon Streeter. He's going to do exactly what you tell him to do, right? So if that was the case, the easy thing for Dabo to do would just be keep Brandon Streeter. That's not what he did. Dabo wants to win, and the thing is I think it goes a lot deeper than some of us Clemson fans kind of understand. The personnel issues that we have had. You know, and that could be coaching. I think that's someone coaching and a lack of development. Some of it is on missing in the recruiting. Some of it is on injuries. Some of it is on, you know, execution, so on and so forth, right? But it's a lot of different things. You know, we hope that the second year in Garrett Riley's offense is going to be a lot better. We hope that, you know, he has grown. I mean, let's remember that Garrett Riley is also a very young coach, right? Like, he's still learning as well. He's not like this, you know, finished product. You know, he's still learning. He's still a young coach. He's still developing as a play caller, and he's still learning especially
since it's his first year not being with, you know, his mentor. You know,
right? So exactly.
Everywhere he had been with Sonny Dykes. It was, you know, it's a guy that Garrett Riley called the plays, but, you know, his offensive philosophy, all of that takes heavily from Sonny Dykes and you know, just growing up and obviously, you know, he has his brother and all of that, and they certainly have their own offensive philosophy. But, you know, this is the first time where he doesn't have that. That was the first year. So, you know, you can't, you know, discount that as a factor as well. I mean, all of those things you said, he's still a young, inexperienced coach that has a really bright future, and he's a really bright offensive mind, but he's still really young, and this is the first year where he didn't have all the pieces that he needed to be as successful as he thought he was going to be.
And
that's kind of tough.
Yeah, it's tough, and he's got a lot of work to do, and the players got a lot of work to do, right? Yeah. And hopefully we can start seeing it come together, because I think it was the right hire for Clemson. It just wasn't an instant success, but that doesn't mean it can't be successful. It just wasn't an instant success like we thought it was going to be last season, and that was probably wishful thinking on our part, right? Yeah. You saw how broken that Clemson offense was for 2 straight seasons. So it was probably wishful thinking and a little naive on Clemson fans' part to just think Garrett Riley was going to roll in and just solve all the Clemson problems on the offensive side of the ball. Right. That's just like, I don't know if there was a coach out there that could have done that. Whether it was Garrett Riley or some other amazing offensive mind that you want to name. Clemson's problems, obviously ran deeper than maybe any of us thought.
Scheme, yeah.
It wasn't just scheme. It wasn't just play calling, obviously. So, hopefully those are, still being corrected and will continue to be corrected, and we can grow and develop, and, it looks a little bit closer to what we thought the Garrett Riley system would look like at Clemson.
Absolutely. Go Tigers says on NFL Network, they were saying this morning Rook was later first, early second round pick. So if he has a great combine, he could be a mid first round pick. Yeah, potentially. I mean, and the thing with the NFL is the NFL draft. It only takes one team to really want you and see value in you, and then all of a sudden that's where you are. I think Rook is absolutely a first round talent. I think he has his best football, and he's one of those guys. I think his best football is still ahead of him. He was a really good player here. But I think he's still scratching the surface because he just hasn't played football as long as the guys he's competing against. And so I think he's got all, he gets in with NFL coaching and gets a chance. Maybe he's not a guy that you start right away, but I think he's a guy that could be, he has a really high upside and could be, one of those guys you're talking about in a few years. Like, he's one of the best, defensive tackles, and kind of like what Dexter Lawrence was. Not the same player, but Dexter Lawrence came in. You saw all the tools and ability, and it took him a little bit. But once he got, especially when he got into the right system and the right coach that saw his ability. Now he's arguably the best defensive lineman playing right now. Now he's named Aaron Donald.
Right. Now he's a 2-time All-Pro, right? Right. He's just season after season just performing at the top of the NFL, right?
Yep.
But, so I think Rook probably has the highest ceiling out of all those dudes in the draft right now, as far as Clemson players go. He's got a chance to be really, really good in the NFL. It's crazy how good he is now and how little he's played football.
Yep.
It just doesn't make sense, man. Like,
that was a hell of an evaluation because a random and he was playing defensive end in high school, or some random undersized, defensive end from Michigan. Clemson went and got him, and
it's crazy.
Yeah, and a guy that hadn't played football, he had only been playing football for a year at that point, and you turned him into a potential first round pick.
That's one of those dudes that everybody looks sideways like, why are they offering him? Like, what? Yeah, who is that? Rook Rower.
What is that? Clemson and these difficult to pronounce names. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they go looking for these dudes at this point.
Yeah, they do.
We do it on purpose.
I think we do. Let's see. John asks a baseball question. He says, what's your prediction on this weekend series? I'm thinking lose Friday, win Saturday and Sunday. And I understand. I know why you said lose Friday, considering who's starting. But I've kind of gone back and forth because, it's always, with this series, it's really difficult to predict because you've only had 2 weekends, and Clemson has shown some really good stuff. This lineup can hit, that's for sure. They can rake, but the pitching has been spotty at times. So really the bullpen, but even some one or two of your Friday guys, not Friday guys, but guys you expected to be Friday/weekend guys haven't really shown up. And obviously the guy you thought was going to be your best guy coming in hasn't really pitched that much in Austin Gordon. So, you're kind of in a tough spot. You have a lot of talent. And I think Jimmy Bellinger, Clemson's pitching coach, I think he has a lot of clay to mold with, but not a lot of finished products. Like I think Aiden Kanak is going to be he's going to be an amazing pitcher. And he's going to be, I think he's the Sunday starter. So I'm excited to see how that goes. But Billy Barlow is a guy that, he has good stuff, but he can't find his command it just hasn't been there. And he got shelled. He's gotten shelled a couple of times now. And it's just makes you kind of scratch your head and worry about that Friday, that game tomorrow. Yeah. So it's going to be tough to predict, but South Carolina hasn't been immune to issues as well. They've had some hitting lulls in a couple of their games. I think their bullpen is really good, but I think they're very kind of like what Clemson was under their previous head coach. Yeah. They're heavy hitters. They hit for power, but they've done a good job at drawing walks, but they're not really a small ball type team, kind of like what Eric Bakich wants to be at Clemson. So those are two conflicting styles, and we'll kind of see how it goes. If South Carolina's bats are hot, they're going to be tough to beat. I don't think either team sweeps. I'm going to say Clemson takes 2 of 3. But
that's what I was going to say. I don't know if I'm going to predict any particular game that they're going to take. I guess I'll go with John on the Friday loss. But yeah, I think 2 to 3. Shout out to our boy Will Taylor too for
3 home runs, man.
Breaking that. Hey, what a way to break a hitting slump, dude. He was like, 0 for 22 or 0 for 23.
It was something ridiculous like that.
And then just goes yard 3 times. I mean, I can't think of a better way to break a hitting slump.
That was pretty nice. He even got a shout out from Kirk Herbstreit on Twitter. So that was cool.
What a way to do it. So shout out to him, former Clemson football player.
Absolutely. Thank you for the baseball question. We don't, we haven't talked about, we
don't
like we said, this time is you guys' time, so you can ask us anything. It can be about Clemson football, any Clemson sport, could be life, general questions, favorite food, movie. I don't know. You can ask whatever you want.
Yeah. While we're talking about baseball, shout out to the softball team. But I don't know if you saw the softball game last night, but I
did see it.
That was that was tough, man. That was a tough loss. That was a heartbreaker. I felt it coming, unfortunately, though.
Yeah.
I think
we left too many on base. I mean, how many? Yeah, we left 14, 15 on stranded or something like that.
Yeah,
14 runners on base.
I think we ended up leaving 14 stranded. We had the bases loaded twice. And didn't score any runs.
That's something the baseball team has done a lot this year too.
From that, and then I think towards the end, obviously it went extra innings. Georgia got that walk-off hit, and you could tell in that 8th inning that Valerie didn't have it anymore.
Yeah, and she pitched a hell of a game.
She pitched great, and I don't fault her at all. I just think Rittman should have made a change in at pitcher. I just think she was gassed at that point. Yeah. I mean, she was up over probably 120, 130 pitches at that point. So,
I understand in retrospect. And in reality, you should – I mean, that loss was on the offense.
For sure.
Driving runners in. Like, you can't leave 14. That was you out-hit – well, I think they finished with the same amount of hits, but you out-hit Georgia in regulation innings, whatever you call it.
Yeah, no, they 100% did.
And you left all those runners on, but you left the bases loaded. You deserved. I mean, you get what you deserve at the end of the day. So and it was such a missed opportunity. That's a good Georgia team. They're going to.
It's a very, and it'd have been such a good win.
They might be the best team in the SEC.
Yeah, for that softball team, it would have been such a statement win for Clemson, especially heading into the weekend and opening up ACC play and all that stuff. It would have been a really good win to get, but. Unfortunately, they didn't get it. I think they should have made a pitching change, not because obviously Valerie's the best pitcher on the team, the best player on the team, but she was just gassed at that point. And I think maybe Georgia seeing a different hitter at that point would have probably, bode well. At a certain point, when you bat around and the same batters have seen the same pitcher, 4 times, 5 times, eventually they're going to start, with a team as good as Georgia, they're going to start putting it together, right? So, it is what it is. They didn't get it done offensively. Timely hitting was not their strong suit. So on to ACC play. So shout out to both the baseball and the softball team. Hopefully they have great weekends, especially the baseball team playing against the Gamecocks. We got to at least take 2 out of 3 in that series.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have to.
Let's see. Jay asked thoughts on the first team offensive line group. Saw Harris Sewell on second team. Yeah. And it's, that's going to be one of the that's the other big question about spring. Cause it's, again, we talked about it, new offensive line coach. I mean, especially of the caliber of Matt Luke, you bring him in and you let him evaluate who he thinks is the best.
Once you hire a coach like Matt Luke, no one's a starter anymore. You're just the offensive line group, and he rolls in there, he evaluates, and I trust that he will make the right decisions and come up with the 5 best players that are give us the best chance of winning in 2024. That's what I think. And there's talking about the OL. It's going to be a battle at center. Who's going to come out? Is it going to be Harris Sewell? Is it going to be Ryan Lithicum?
Trent Howard.
Elijah
Thurman.
I think Elijah Thurman was mentioned as possibly being a center.
I think it's I think right now, as it stands, I think it's Harris Sewell or Ryan Linthicum. I think those are the main 2, and then I think Trent Howard and Elijah Thurman are on the horizon, and maybe they're going to train them up to be options. But I certainly think those are the 2 vying for it right now. For the most part. And so, that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And I think there are 3 guys I feel confident, I feel confident saying will start.
Yeah.
I think Walker Parks.
Absolutely.
I believe that's your best guy. I believe Marcus Tate.
Yep. And then
Blake Miller.
Thank you. I was trying to think of his name.
Yeah. I think those guys will play.
Yep. 100%. I think those 3 will be starters.
Yeah. But beyond that,
left tackle, center are up in the air. Those 2 positions are really up in the air. Like you, I feel pretty good about those 3 you mentioned. Now, granted, they could lose their job. I mean, I don't think it's 100% guaranteed, but you feel like those 3 will probably come out of spring and start the season, at least barring injury, as the starters. But we'll see. That's one of the huge questions coming out of spring, man. Like that's one of the outside of defensive end. That's another very hot topic. In spring is how that offensive line is going to look, because we need them to take a step. We need them to progress. Because with Moffitt getting the bulk of the carries this year, I mean, he could really have a monster season if that offensive line can put it together.
Yeah, absolutely. Will asks a good question. Obviously he has a vested interest. Yes, will Ronan Hannafin have a chance to start? A chance to start, I would doubt it.
I don't think so.
And I think because he's injured in the spring, I think that kind of limits his ability. But he was he did come in special teams last year. I think that's largely going to be his role. But I think there's a chance, especially if he gets back healthy and in the fall, because the staff. They love him. I think he'll have more opportunities this fall, but it's just going to be about how much and how quickly does he get back up to speed once he recovers. But Yeah, to start, I think there are too many bodies in front of him, barring something crazy, and he just has a breakout.
That's a crowded receiving room, dude.
It is
that wide receiving room is crowded. You know, we'll see who steps forward and who secures the playing time. But I mean, you think about it, it's a good problem to have because those dudes are going to be competing hard for playing time. They're going to be in a hard fought battle for playing time over there because there's a lot of good guys, and there's honestly a lot of guys that have produced pretty well for Clemson already that will be fighting for playing time. So you can only run so many guys out there first, and Ronan probably won't be one of those dudes.
No, I would be surprised, but I really like Ronan Hannafin. I really liked him as a prospect, and so, but I think his path to playing time is a little bit more long term, just because of where things are from a numbers standpoint. It's just crowded, but I think he'll get opportunities, and I think he'll, maybe he has some ability in some special play situations. Maybe you draw up something for him as a change of pace. He's a really great blocker, and so I think he has some. I think he has some utility, and you can find ways to get him onto the field. But as a guy, we expect him to be a major contributor and start. No, I don't.
That could be his way on the field. I mean, Garrett Riley's system is predicated on very good perimeter blocking. So, that could be one of his ways that he gets on the field. Yeah. I know he's a big time special teams guy. He loves getting out there and, laying it on the line.
Yeah, I mean, he played linebacker. He played linebacker in high school too. So that's
he's not comfortable. He's not scared. He's a physical guy. So, he could have a path. I mean, you never know. Look, he's got a shot, but it is a crowded wide receiver room. So it's going to be difficult.
Yeah. Tony asks, any news on possible conference realignment involving Clemson? Tony,
maybe
your guess is as good as mine. A lot of this stuff is in the dark. I mean, we'll see. I know all I know is they're working behind the scenes, but as far as anything coming soon, I don't know. I really don't know.
As per Clemson's MO, they're not going to talk about anything publicly.
Yeah. Clemson has taken quite the opposite approach to all this than Florida State has. Not saying that's what Florida State did is a bad thing, but
no.
They just had very different ways of going about it.
Yeah, I think they're both trying to achieve the same thing. They're just going about it two different ways. And
right.
I think eventually they're both leaving the ACC, so the end result will probably be the exact same.
David Wood asked, do you think Brenningstool will have an All-American year? I think he certainly has the potential, and Dabo said the sky's the limit for him, and I tend to agree. I mean, you saw how good he was when they
put it together.
Yeah, when they committed to involving him in the passing game, good things happened.
Yep. He started really putting it together at the end of last season. Yeah. You saw his potential really start to take shape as the season progressed, and hopefully he hits the ground running this spring. And I think they've kind of figured out some things that kind of get him involved and where he fits in best in this offense. So, I'm with you. I think he could absolutely have that kind of season. If he gets the right opportunities in this offense. I mean, we've talked about it at length on this channel about how much of a nightmare matchup wise he is for defenses. I mean, as a linebacker, as a safety, like, you don't want to see that guy, man. Like, it's just like physically you are at a disadvantage no matter what.
Yep.
When you got a guy that is that big, that has the ball skills that Brenningstool has, it's not a good situation to be in. So if we can find a way to consistently use him the right way, that could be a real problem for defenses.
And he showed it. Yeah.
Yeah. He showed the ability last season towards the end. So let's just hope we can build on that, because we better not go back to we get to the end of a game, Jordan, and we're like, where was Brenningstool? Like that.
Yeah.
That can't happen no more. Not with a guy like that.
No,
you gotta use him. He's too much of a weapon.
Absolutely. Michael says, I still see Dabo going in the portal post spring for a defensive end. I mean, I think as it stands now, I think that's pretty unlikely. Just how he was talking about it. But again, he said he didn't say, but he said in the past that if the right guy comes, that's who they'll go get. But right now, they don't see anybody that they think could help them right now. So whether that's true, whether that's correct or not, that's
I don't know that I buy all that, but
I mean, I don't know, but I'm not really in tune with the portal right now as far as who's it, and obviously things will look different once these teams really get into spring practice and guys kind of figure out their roles and choose what they decide to do.
Yeah, and it would also depend on turnover on Clemson's roster,
right?
And then who's in the portal as a defensive end, right? They're not just going to go get anybody,
right?
I think if Clemson gets a defensive end, it's going to be somebody that can contribute right now. They have plenty of depth that needs to be developed. If they go to the portal, the only thing that I would think to go to the portal for to make sense would be a guy to play right now, to play significant, if not starting snaps for you. So if you're not going to do that, or that guy doesn't exist out there for whatever reason, there's no use in going to the portal for a defensive end. They don't need a guy that needs a year or two of development. They need a guy that can win right now.
Absolutely. John asked the question. He said, "Does the Texas Tech players' flat Earth and bird ideas have Jordan rethinking with astrophysics hypotheses?" Yeah, if you guys don't know what he's talking about, there was a Texas Tech player at the combine. What's his name? Was it Cole? I'm blanking on his name right now, but they asked him. I heard his response, but I didn't hear the question. But he talked about the Earth being flat, and we're under a dome and all that. So I was, I kind of treat that kind of stuff the same way I did Kyrie. I'm like, well, neither of them are authorities on science or anything like that. So it's whatever. I mean, it's your personal belief. It's wrong, but it's not harming anybody.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing, right? Like, if we are, so what? Yeah. What does it change? What does it change?
Yeah.
I mean, is it going to change your life tomorrow if that's true?
No. Not really. I mean, not as far as. I mean, it would be, from a scientific standpoint, sure, but not
for sure.
A day-to-day
but
life.
From like a day-to-day life, like normal people, like it's not going to change your life. So does it really matter? Like, why are you losing sleep over this stuff? Who cares?
Right.
leave it to those people to figure it out.
David says Riley is loving the upstate Clemson coach last time. I mean, yeah, he has fun on social media at times, yeah, for sure. And I know he loves being at Clemson, so that's a good thing. Because after how last season went, some guys would have said, okay, this ain't gonna work, and I think he believes in what they're trying to accomplish here, and obviously he came to Clemson for a reason, and he wanted to accomplish something that he hasn't so far in his career. So that's I think that speaks to him as a coach, and obviously he is certainly young and has a lot of aspirations, but he's willing to, he wants to be a part of something before he goes out and does his own thing. So that's cool. Let's see. Jay asked, did we get any player availability for today's practice? Well, we did read off the list that Dabo gave yesterday. I don't know of any updates or changes so far to that. that list. So as things stand, they're the same as they were yesterday. So, but again, we'll go back and this is for everybody. You know, and we talked about earlier in the show, we put timestamps at the end once we go off. So if you missed something you wanted to hear us talk about, those will be in the description. So make sure to check those out. Those of you on the rewatch too. John, a strong lacrosse midfielder can be in reference to Ronan Hannafin. He says, we'll see. Skills transfer well. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's one thing that's the thing that Clemson loved about him, and what they love in their wide receivers in general is being multi-sport athletes. And Ronan Hannafin certainly fits the bill. He's just great athlete all around. And I mean, he has all the physical tools. So, I mean, I think he's got the opportunity to be a really good player here. So you just got to, I think it's just, it's a product of kind of the wide receiver room is kind of, as we said, it's kind of crowded right now, and there's a lot of bodies, and, there's some guys ahead of him that are just, Clemson needs to play more. Adam Randall, Antonio Williams, Tyler Brown, Troy Stellato. I mean, a lot of these guys have just been in the program longer. Cole Turner. So that's kind of where it is. Will says that he's a stud. Yeah, I mean, I love this tape. Yeah, he can flat out play, and so that's what's exciting. Is I think Clemson's wide receiver room, as much flack as it's gotten over the past couple of seasons. I think last year they were, if it weren't for the injuries, when they were healthy, I thought they were in a good spot, and as good as they've been in a while. And I think this year, with guys being, farther removed from some of those injuries, I think they have a chance to be kind of more akin to what we've seen in the past from Clemson wide receivers. So, but it's all about putting it together, and at the end of the day, you got to see it. So,
got to see it on the field. It's got to translate to the field. Gotta be lucky to have some health and not have so many injuries, which we have not been very good in that department for really the past 3 years, especially at the wide receiver position. But hopefully we're going to turn the corner with that. I think we got more depth in there than we've had in several years, so that'll obviously help when it comes to injuries and attrition and things like that throughout the season. So we're in a good spot, I think, as a wide receiver room.
Yeah. That's not, the wide receiver is certainly, I mean, they have some things to prove, but I think the tools in the toolbox are there.
Yeah.
We're not missing somebody that we desperately need. But I think all the tools to have an explosive offense and a really good offense next year are in that wide receiver room right now.
I agree.
So, and I don't think you could have said that at least a couple of years ago. So
no, definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah, Jay says if Brenny could improve his blocking, that's
not his calling. Yeah, it's not his calling card. He's not great at it.
And as we've said, I mean, that's just, I mean, he's not physically, like, that's just not it. He's not in a physical standpoint to really be that effective of a blocker. Right. It's not, I don't watch him and say, oh man, he's not trying. I think he doesn't. He's just never going, unless he puts on a ton of weight, at the expense of his athleticism.
Which is not why you have a guy like that on the roster. Like,
right.
You don't want him to put on a ton of weight,
right,
because, then he's not as explosive. He's not as athletic. He's not as big of an issue for the opposing defense.
Yeah, so. He's got a wiry frame. Like, he's not a guy that can put on a ton of weight. He's not one of those freaks that can just put on 15, 20 pounds of muscle and keep his speed and all that and not be and be the same player. He's not. That's not him. He needs like where he's at. That's where he's best at as a receiving threat. All of that. I mean, we make the Jordan Leggett comparisons all the time. I mean, it's the same. It's the same thing. Like, he just was never going to be that great of a blocker. I mean, Leggett was a little bit bigger, but they were very similar as far as just kind of that was their effectiveness and their role in the offense was being a big play, threat and being a matchup nightmare in the passing game. That's what they were. And I think Brenningstool has the chance to be, have a way better season than Jordan Leggett ever did. But it's all about getting him involved. And so that's and making a concerted effort to keep him involved and create opportunities for him, because he's got. I mean, he would be so. I think his production would be so much better at this point if they had done a better job of doing that, especially last year. Because man, there were times where like, oh man, he would look unstoppable, and then he would go missing for. Maybe he'd go missing the next week, and you're like, oh man, he only finished with 2 catches. And you're like, you can't do that. And it wasn't because he wasn't getting open. As we've talked about, there were open receivers, and
yes, there were.
Jake Brenningstool had a lot of games where he got open and didn't see the ball for one reason or the other. So, that's the thing we're contending with, and that's the thing that has to improve from last year. All right. I think that's going to do it. Hitting the 2.5 hour mark. You have anything else?
I do not have anything else. I think that's a good place to go ahead and wrap it up. Our show went way longer tonight just because of all the spring practice news and all that kind of stuff. But we really do appreciate every single one of you for showing up and sticking it out. We are literally hours, 2.5 hours to, to be exact, into the show right now. And you guys are still sticking it out with us. We got 23 people in the live chat right now. Thank you guys so much. Really do appreciate it. Me and Jordan love coming on and doing the show. One of our favorite things to do. Every single week. And you guys are what makes it special. You guys are what makes it worth doing, because if there was nobody here to interact and talk with us, we could just call each other on the phone and do this instead of doing it on YouTube. But thank you guys so much for supporting the show, showing up week in and week out, and sharing it with your friends and sharing it with people. We really do appreciate that. Look for our timestamps that will be in the description of the video. That'll say the topics and the times that you can speed up to if you're watching this in the rewatch, or if you're in the live chat right now and you want to go back and hear what we said about a certain segment. Those will be in the description of the video, probably between 10 and 15 minutes after the show ends. So thank you guys so much for showing up. Again, we will be back here next Thursday, 7 p.m., same bat time, same bat channel.